Hi there! In today's video, I'd like to show you how to build a responsive page on our platform, or how to convert an existing mobile optimized page into a responsive page. Let's take a look at a couple of examples of responsive pages that were built on our platform earlier. Here is one. And if I minimize the browser width, make it smaller, you see that the page transforms to fit the smaller screen size. And it doesn't just shrink the content, it also transforms the page, such as displaying elements one under the other instead of next to each other. And it also adds the accordion style collapsible navigation to certain components. And let's take a look at another page. And if I shrink the browser window, I see that the same types of transformations apply to that as well. All right, so let's take a look at a mobile-only page that was created on our platform earlier. This page is only optimized for the smartphones. It has a maximum width of the content set to 600 pixels. And we're going to convert that into a responsive page. So we'll get started by clicking on Convert to Responsive link here at the top. When you click on that, you see a pop-up that's explaining what's going to happen. What's going to happen in this case is the original mobile-only page is going to be saved on its own URL, and the responsive page is going to be created on a new page URL, so that the old page could still be live and not be affected until you specifically make the responsive version live. Click on yes, and I'm gonna save and publish it and go back to pages. So here you see that we have the original mobile page left as is, and we have the responsive page on its own URL. And when I take it live, it's going to take the mobile page's URL. And I'm going to click on Edit Large Screen Version. And immediately I'm going to change a couple of things to make it look better. First of all, this accordion type navigation looks great and works great for smartphones because it saves you the real estate space and enables you to display more information in a compact manner, so to speak. However, it doesn't really make a lot of sense for desktops in many cases. So what I'd like to do is click on this edit icon and set the collapsible navigation to be available for the mobile version only. And I'll do the same thing for all three of these widgets. Next, this type of button look for the headers again looks great on the smartphones. However, you typically don't see that kind of look for the headers in the desktop sites. So I'd like to change it to something else, and I'm going to click on Style, and I will change the style of the headers for the large screens. As you can see, the Style Settings window now has two options. One tab is for small screens and one tab is for large screens. By default, the small screen settings apply. So if you don't have anything specified for a certain setting in for the large screen version, then that setting taken from the small screen default version is going to apply. So here for the headers, make sure the large screen option is selected. I will set the background to none. And also I'll set a border at the bottom of the headers. So that's what it looks like now. Next, what I'd like to do is remove some of the spacing around this top row. Let me explain to you a couple of new concepts that we've added to our editor. When you add a widget into the page, it gets added into a container, and the container is inside a row. So you can have multiple containers in the same row, and you can have multiple widgets in the same container. That enables you to place multiple items next to each other on the same line. It also enables you to set, say, a background or certain styling around multiple elements together, or it allows you to collapse multiple widgets in the same section. So to make that happen, you would click on container, you would place multiple widgets in the container, and you would set that container to be collapsible. Okay, so what I'm going to do is click on the edit for this row, and I'm going to change this padding to something else. By default, when you create a responsive page, or when you convert an existing mobile page to responsive, we add 45 pixel padding for all rows for the large screen version. And we do that because typically on the desktops, elements have a lot more space around them than on smartphones, and so to make the page look more attractive, you would need to add that space around everything. And to save you on that exercise, we decided to go ahead and add those 45 pixels by default. However, for this particular top row, it's too much, so I've just changed it to 5. And finally, this button looks too big, too wide, so I don't want it to be bigger than 400 pixels. So I'm going to set the max width to 400 pixels, and again I'm going to set it for small screens. It will apply for small screens and for large screens, because the small screen setting is the default setting. And also I need to center the text. And finally, this looks too spaced out. What I really need to do here is display these 3 elements next to each other on the same line. And I'm going to do that by dragging them in the same row. So what we have here now is we have a row with a container and then with a widget in it. And what I need to do is have a row with 3 containers in it on the same line. So let's click on drag components, and the drag components, or the draggable mode, enables me to drag items such as containers, rows, and widgets on the screen. So I'm going to drag this container up into this row, and I'm going to do the same thing with this container. So now we have a row with 3 containers in it. To set them to be on the same line, I need to set the widths of these containers. And here you need to do a little bit of math. The rule is that a row always takes 100% width. So if you want multiple items to be on the same row next to each other, you need to set their widths accordingly. For example, if you have 2 containers that need to go next to each other, you might want to set the widths of these containers to be 50% and 50%, or 65 and 35, right? As long as the sum is equals or less 100%. In this case, I have 3 containers on a row, so I'm going to set the widths to 33% for each of these containers. And I'm going to do that for large screens only, because on smartphones I do need them to take up the full width of the screen. 33 and 33. And click on preview, and here's what we get. Let's go ahead, save, and look at it in the browser. So for certain designs, this may be enough, and at this point you might want to take the page live. However, I'm going to show you a couple of other adjustments that I'd like to make to this page. So first, what I'd like to do is set the background for rows. And setting the background for rows really makes the content kind of look separated and gives it that nice professional touch. It's an easy way to do that. So I'm going to set the background. You can do color or gradient, you could do a background image. So let's set it to color, let's set it to white, and I'm going to apply transparency, and I will show you later why I apply transparency in this case. In fact, I am applying transparency because I'm also going to add a big background image to this page. If you don't have that, you may not want to set the transparency. And this row I'm going to leave as is, and this row and finally this final last row. Let's set this one to a gradient. And let's refresh the page in the browser. So this adds a little bit more, makes this page a little bit more interesting. And next thing I want to do is add a background to this page. I'm going to click on Style. And here, if you click on the background image, you have you'll see several background images that we've added into the library. You can search them by color or by topic. So let's click on restaurants, and let's select something like this. I will set the background size to cover. Background size cover will try to use that image to cover the entire width of the page, and it will apply the scaling and all the proportions correctly, so you don't have to worry about that. And that's what it looks like now. So finally, what I'd like to do is add a background that would go under this whole section. So the background will be under the button, and it will be under this image and text widget. To do that, I'm going to need to drag this button up and fit it in the same container as this other widget. So let's click on Drag Components. And I'm going to drag this widget up. Now we have both elements in the same, in the same container. Click back on Preview, and I'm going to click on Container and apply a background to that. Let's make it white. Also, I would like, I don't want the background to be just a boring square. I'd like to add certain, rounded corners around it. So let's set rounded corners, and I'd like for them to be a little bigger, more rounded on the desktops. Also, I always like to add additional spacing. Padding is just me, but I prefer for things to be spaced out. I don't like it when text kind of runs up against the edge of the container. Okay, what I've done here is set it accidentally to the header instead of the content. I need to set it to the content area of the container. All right, here you go. And let's refresh this page in the browser. And that's what we get. Finally, I'd like to show you how to add a widget using our new feature, new advanced editor. In this case, I would like to add an additional widget, a form that would go right here to the right of this image and text. So you can go back to edit small screen version and add it here, or you can do it in the large screen version, whatever is more comfortable for you. So here for the containers, we have this new icon that says add a widget into this container. What this icon does is it makes this container the recipient of the widget. Basically, once you click on it, next thing you need to do is click on a widget, and the widget would be added into that container. And after that, you can drag it if you need to adjust its position, etc. You can do the same thing with the rows. To rows, you can add a container. In this case, when you click on this widget, a container will be added into this row. You also have options of adding rows above this row or below this row. And you have options of adding a container above or before this container or after this container. So you also have the drag and drop, of course. However, sometimes if the page gets too long, dragging and dropping is a little tricky. You can lose your space, so you might want to use these icons instead of the drag and drop. So in this case, I'd like to add another widget. So I'm going to make this container the recipient of that widget, and let's add a form. I don't need this form to be too long. I'm going to delete some of these fields. Okay, and the form needs to go above the buttons, so I'm going to click on drag components. So I still need to do a little bit of dragging, but it's not across the whole page, right? I just need to drag this up, and it's much easier to do, much easier to see what I'm doing. Okay, so let's click back on the preview. So we have this taking up the full width of the screen. We have this form taking up the full width. I need them to go next to each other. So I'm going to click on the edit styles and set this widget's width to, let's say, 65%, and I'm going to set the form's width to 35%. And now I have them next to each other. All right. Let's take a look at it in the browser. All looks good. Let's shrink it down. Okay. So the only problem with this approach is on the smartphones now our call to action button or our phone tap to call button is not really easily accessible. Users would have to scroll down and look for it. And that's not what we want, because of course the number one action your mobile users are typically going to take is make the phone call. To get around this issue, what I'm going to do is I'm going to hide this widget on small screens. So this call button is going to be visible only on the large screens. And then I will add another link button. So in this case, this link button went to the bottom of the screen, and I would have to drag it all the way up, and sometimes it's not very convenient. So I'm going to delete that, and instead I will click on this add widget to this container and add the link button into this container instead. And so here we have this second button, and I'm going to drag it up. So let's drag it up. This button, I'm going to make it visible on small screens only, so I'm going to hide it for large screens. Of course, I need to adjust the styling for these buttons so that the styling matches. They both have the same styles. Let's do that real quick. And get rid of this pointing arrow. Save. Okay. Let's check what we've done. And here we go. We have one call button right here. And we have another call button right there. Of course, you might want to adjust the spacing and do certain things, but just for the quick demonstration purposes, this is what you can do when you need to display certain elements at the top of the page on certain screens. Of course, don't try to use this feature too much. It might be okay for a couple of elements on the page, but don't go too far with it. Okay, and finally, I'd like to show you how to take this page live. So this page looks good. I would like to replace the original mobile page with this new responsive page now. So I'm going to click on Take This Live. And this pop-up is asking me, what do I want to do with the old mobile page? Do you want to delete it, or do you want to keep it? I'd like to keep it just in case I want to reference it or go back to it in the future. If I go back to the pages list, I now see that here's the old mobile only page that is here on this odd looking URL, but I can use it if I need to for some reason. And the new responsive page is now on the URL we need it to be on. Okay, and the last thing I want to show you is creating a new page. This is going to be real quick. If you need to build a new responsive page from scratch, or by using our template, simply click on this Create New button, and here you have a tab where you can start from scratch, or you can pick one of our templates. And these templates, when you click on that, your page is going to look exactly like this template. So you can make changes to it, any changes you want, drag and drop, add elements, change colors, and all that.